welcome to the Rebel Ballerina Show, where we learn to live a kick-ass rebel life. I'm your host, Lise, the Rebel Ballerina. There's no farting around in this show, just straight up fun. But if your ears are sensitive, go ahead and move along. If you want a truly kick-ass life, well, then here we go. Hello, and welcome back to the Rebel Ballerina Show. And I am Lise, the Rebel Ballerina. I'm so glad you're here today, checking this out, getting some information that maybe is brand new and you haven't really thought of before. So gaining awareness is such a huge part of being able to do anything about anything, right? If you don't have the awareness, how can you correct something? Like, that's how I teach in my ballet classes when I'm teaching. And that's my job, is to help show different things, that even little nuances that make a huge difference in how something is actually done. But without that awareness, how is anyone supposed to know that? Right? That's my job. So now I'm able to bring more awareness in a whole different realm, and that is life itself and how we're living it. And on a previous episode, I talked about the playlists that run through our minds rather constantly, and we just don't even realize it. Again, awareness, right? Usually we are stuck in a playlist, and I'm talking about, well, actually everybody's got some kind of K-Li playlist, whether it leads you into more of a fight or further a narcissistic type pattern, life pattern, or into the fawn trauma response pattern. And you can throw freeze and flight in there as well. They're all derived by this K-Li playlist going on. And I thought I'd dig in a little bit deeper to explain what that really is. And I'll use myself as an example. So when I was growing up, well, actually, I've mentioned this before, but being a kid who was adopted as a baby, I came into this world, being birthed into this world, feeling subconsciously having this awareness that I was inconvenient because I was not a wanted pregnancy. I was not a cherished being. So I was not being put together, knit together with love and those warm feelings of joy and excitement that this new person's going to come into the world, right? No, mine, I was knit together in cortisol because I'm pretty darn sure, haven't been able to find her to interview her, but I am pretty darn sure that my birth mother was not happy at all. And you know what? Reasonably, that's understandable. I'm not saying she should jump up and down for joy that she's suddenly pregnant and has no way of being able to handle that. Very young. And it does happen. So I'm not condemning that. I'm just saying this is what is. When this happens, then that pregnancy continues on and the baby is formed with a whole lot of stress hormones flowing. Excuse me, because birth mom is stressed. And so, therefore, just being conceived and forming, I was already under the impression and already had an awareness in my subconscious that I am inconvenient. So that was definitely a prominent feature in my K-Li playlist. Inconvenient. And then, of course, with my dad kind of tossing me aside at 2 years old, well, he really reinforced that, right? I am inconvenient. I am not worth his time. I'm being pushed aside. I'm being put down with whatever scenario is going on at the moment. And the list that's going on in my brain is you're not worth you're not worth it. You're not worthy. You're not worth my time, my energy, my affection, my love. Those are the things that became ingrained in my subconscious, in my mind, that even though he never said such words as that I can remember the tone. Again, it was a behavior, wasn't necessarily from words. It was from behavior. His behavior told me those things. I'm inconvenient, I'm unworthy, I'm not worth his time, effort, or affection, love. The things that small children really need. So that that's part of it. I grew up also feeling like I was inherently evil. That's what I was taught. I'm inherently evil. We're born in sin, we're born inherently evil. And that formed a lot of negative K-Li feedback in my mind. I struggled in school. I was ridiculously skinny. I mean, sometime like into my adulthood, I looked back on some pictures that I hadn't seen in years of when I was about 13 and I weighed 68 pounds. And even I looked at him and went, whoa, oh my gosh. No wonder people made comments all the time. I was definitely the kid being made fun of in my class. I was in the fifth, not so much kindergarten through fourth, because that kind of stuff isn't that big. Most of the time, well, at least in my class, K through fourth, we were all just a big group of friends. And yeah, you would, like, I had my best friend, but everyone was basically friends. The cliques didn't start yet. Right around fourth, fifth, that starts to happen. And of course, everyone else was growing, and especially the girls. You get to sixth grade and they're starting to get more womanly in their figures and all of that. And I was certainly not. I was still, well, heck, I looked like a little boy. I had no form. And I was a stick figure. It was ridiculous. Not that I'm knocking it, because believe me, I'm enjoying the fact that I have some control over my weight. That's a whole nother story, because at one point I did get 40 pounds overweight for me, which was not good. And so I, growing up super skinny though, I was an easy target because I was different. And I was very much made fun of by the time fifth, sixth, seventh grades came around, especially sixth and seventh, to the point where I even had teachers join in this thing. So, like, for example, the kids, they didn't call me by my name most of the time. I didn't hear, hey, Lisa. It was, hey, Sticks, Bones, Skeleton. Um, I heard things like, if you turn sideways and stick out your tongue, you look like a zipper. My favorite, though, was, do you wear skis in the shower so you don't go down the drain? At the time that was not funny, but now that's pretty clever. That was actually a good one. That took some thought. But I will say I ruled at dodgeball because all I had to do was turn sideways and that ball flew right by. It was great. So one thing I excelled in, dodgeball. Anyway, kind of silly, but I'll tell you what, at the time, those jabs, those teases that were not teasing, there was some real, what do you call it? Cynicism or malicious intent there. Uh, there was. I could feel it for sure. Anyway, that was my perception that I was being made fun of and it hurt. And here's where you can see the the impression was real. So my perception was real. When I would get on the school bus, um, looking for a seat where I could sit down, if I came and stood next to someone, they'd go and scoot over so that I could actually sit down so the bus could move, you know? That's a that's a great feeling, right? Isn't that just great when you're looked at and they roll their eyes at you and with their disdain and their move over so you can sit down. That's a great feeling. Yeah. That tells you very clearly how worthless you are without words. So, all of these things are behaviors. These kids didn't say to me, go find another seat. I don't want you to sit with me. They didn't say it in words, but they said it in their behavior. And let's face facts, most things are understood through behavior, not words, in my opinion. You get a message loud and clear through behavior. No words actually have to be spoken. I mean, words are good. We do need to communicate, and words can also be very harsh and will definitely be a part of that K-Li playlist. But behaviors speak loudly. Usually, behaviors actually shout, whereas words might just be words, unless, of course, you're being shouted at, yelled at. Then the two are intertwined. In my case, a lot of this stuff happened through these behaviors. So again, I had going through my K-Li playlist that I was inconvenient, unworthy, not worth the time, effort, love. I was different, which I mean, I was, but it was used against me. I was ostracized during these times when I was just describing how it was on the school bus. That's how it was in the classroom, on the playground, at recess, lunch. Often I spent that time by myself because no one wanted to be with the ugly, skinny girl because, that might damage their own reputation, right? Why are you hanging out with her? They didn't want to do that in this time where cliques are forming and being in the popular group really means something. Yeah, I was definitely not that. Definitely not popular. Well, that's not true. I was popular in the way I was being belittled and berated and mistreated. That made me the popular target, that is. That was really, really hard. That was very informative too, and especially when teachers were involved. Because it's one thing, I mean, I think we kind of all know kids can be brutal. And therefore, they'll say things that even if they don't really mean them, or they could be said differently to be a little bit more cushioned. The fact is, kids are pretty straightforward. So it's kind of to be expected. But when you have teachers in the classroom, giggling right along with the kids that are mistreating you and making fun of you, that's not okay. Those are adults. They should know that every child, if they're being picked on, needs to be defended, not joining in. Another example is when we'd have rainy days, rainy day recess, we'd have to be indoors. And so someone would chime in, "Hey, let's play skeleton in the closet. Lisa's right here." So that was not fun. And the teachers would just laugh. It was unbearable to have yet another adult who was not going to stand up for me, who continuously proved that they thought of me as not worth it to stand up and defend. So I've got that from my dad. I'm inconvenient from my birth mom. And, obviously, birth dad is nowhere to be found. Have no clue who that person is. So there's a lot of that abandonment, really. It's abandonment. We come here to this planet with an awe for life. Like, wow, here we are. This is such an amazing place to be and journey. We have dreams, we have things we want to do and accomplish. There's a whole life of wonder and excitement and joy to be had. And then it starts to get smushed out of you little bit by little bit as we go along. Some of it sort of well meaning. I get it. I mean, there has to be some kind of order, right? You do have to tell your child, don't run out into the street because that's just really important for safety. But there's a lot it's already smushing the joy out of us as we're growing up. And these are some of the things that I dealt with. Of course, the one person that stood in that gap was my mom. There was one year, 6th grade, that we had a new student come to our class, and she was gorgeous, absolutely beautiful, already getting that little womanly figure and popular, of course. Parents were wealthy. She's smart. She's got the whole package, and had most of everything that I was missing. Jealous? Sure. Yeah. Cause it's like, why do I get stuck with being pathetic when here's this beautiful one who has it all, right? She made it a point to employ me as her personal peon and would make fun of me all the time. If a pencil rolled off her desk, she would snap her fingers, pick that up. And of course, because I'm already, excuse me, in this trauma response, I acquiesced. Okay. Because, I wanted to make her happy in hopes that I would not be abandoned again, even though I was in the process of being abandoned. I was in the process of being made fun of and belittled. But subconsciously, I was prepared and was doing whatever she wanted to make her happy because that's what we fawns do. My mom would console me. Every other day, I would come home in tears because school was a hell zone for me. It was so hard for me to get through a day because all I felt was this heavy cloud of people's disapproval of me, non acceptance of me, definitely feeding in the K-Li messages, again, "You're not worthy. You're not worth my time. The only thing you're good for is to be made fun of. The only thing you're good for is so we can laugh at you." I wonder if you've heard some of those same messages. Probably not in those same circumstances, but the same messages nonetheless. And if it weren't for my mom, I don't know what I would have done because she held me together. So again, I've mentioned before, she was the only person that was on my side. I have a sister and a brother. My brother is 10 years older, so he moved out when I was 8. He moved out when he was 18, and there just wasn't much of a relationship there. It was good. The times that we did spend together was fine, so it's not like there was a bad relationship at all. It's just that we were in 2 very different stages of life. And then my sister is 4 years older. She's fantastic. And I wouldn't say she was against me, but she also was in her own life, doing her own thing, and I wouldn't say that she wouldn't defend me, but she wasn't there. She's 4 years older, so by this time that I'm talking about, she was in high school. So she wasn't around on my campus to stand up for me, and she had her own stuff going on. But so in other words, it's not that I didn't have anyone else, because my sister definitely loves me and did back then too. Same with my brother. It's just not the same type of situation. My mom was the one who really stood out. At the studio, I had friends. And at the studio, my skinniness was definitely an asset. And it was viewed as, well, my skinniness was still viewed as ridiculous, and quite frankly, it was. I can't lie. When I see the pictures, it's like, holy cow. You know, my mom was actually accused of malnourishing me, of not feeding me. And literally by this time, at 68 pounds, 13 years old, I could devour a whole large pizza while my family shared a pizza like normal. But I ate my whole large pizza by myself. People constantly asking, where the heck is all that food going? Though, when this happened during dinner break between classes and rehearsals, I can tell you where it went. I had this lump in my belly because it had nowhere else to go or hide. It was like, pull in your tummy. And I'm like, I can't. It's a pizza in there. And so, but excuse me, it's seriously, being skinny is definitely an asset when you're growing up pursuing a career in ballet. And so it wasn't a bad thing there. However, I was still getting messages, even from some of my instructors, that I wasn't really worth the time, even though I was putting my heart and soul into building this very career. Messages everywhere. The turning point, believe it or not, when I was in 7th grade, there are 2 factors here. One, when I was in 7th grade, there was a guy named Tony, and he's an 8th grader. He started calling me Cheryl. And I'm like, Cheryl? He'd pass me in the hall, "Hey, Cheryl." And I'm like, what is he talking about? So I asked him one day, he's like, "Yeah, you're like Cheryl Teagues." I was astonished. I mean, she was a huge supermodel at the time. I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, you're like Cheryl." So I was like, "Okay, that's interesting. I'm being compared to someone gorgeous. Wow." And I think he actually meant it. He wasn't saying it in a belittling tone. And he has no idea. how that helped to bring me out of this despair that I was going through. And then the next year, my eighth grade teacher finally had a teacher who was actually an adult, and she supported what I was doing in ballet. She, I think, saw the oppression and yet saw something else in me that that the me, not the pushed down me. And she even came to one of my little ballet performances, which I thought was pretty cool. So to have her encouragement, you hear about these teachers that stand out. Your favorite, who's your favorite teacher? She's one of them because she stands out as someone who actually was caring not just of my education, but as me as a person. So those are some places where my K-hop playlist was starting to gain some some good messages to go through my mind. The problem with these playlists is that the negative usually takes precedence. Let's face facts. Do we not perseverate over whatever mistakes we've made? Do we have a hard time letting them go? I know as a fawn, I can only speak to the fawn set because that's who I am. We have the hardest time forgiving ourselves of any little tiny infraction. And that kind of overwhelming, what do I want to call it? Focus on the negative is part of the problem. Definitely part of the problem. And it just keeps building. So I've had all of these years and then some, of course, that I just described of just little bits of examples of how my K-Li playlist was developed. I grew up with these messages playing in my subconscious that I was inconvenient, unwanted, evil, not worthy, not worth time, effort, or love, not worth being a friend to. My only value was to be laughed at. Those are the messages that played through my mind, and they played then, and they played well into my adulthood. This is how the repeat happens. One of the factors anyway, because this playlist is going on of these negative things and these behaviors telling me that all of those negative things, and I subconsciously take that information as I'm finding people around me and literally attracting that same stuff. That's the repeat. Literally attracting the same stuff in my adulthood. And I proved that to be absolutely true. That's what I did. Did I do it on purpose? Pff, hell no. Who in their right mind would create a shit heap of a life for themselves? No one wants that, really. Even though as fawns, um, we tend to, oh, I just lost it. Anyway, we repeat because of this playlist going on in the back of our minds. We can't seem to get away with it, but we don't even know it's there. And that's the thing. That's why I want to bring awareness to that. How can you change something if you don't even know what's going on? That's the problem. And we fawns just keep going along, trying to be nice, trying to make everyone happy. I totally was trying to make those kids, that especially that one, my teachers, my dad, I wanted to make them happy. Kids naturally want to make those around them, and particularly the authority figures, happy. And I have discovered that we actually need to rebel, not necessarily against that authority, We need to rebel against this trauma pattern. That's what we're rebelling against. We're rebelling against the K-Li playlist, K-L-I-E. I'm going to make a jingle out of it somehow, like a real station little tune. K-L-I-E, something like that, back in the day when there were radio stations that had that kind of signature. I'm a little bit retro. Well, a lot of it retro. So I love that kind of stuff. Anyway, what is going on in your playlist? Can you look back and find some awareness, or just think of today, how you feel about yourself? What negative things come to mind? What negative things just pop out of the blue, seemingly? Or if you make a mistake, or whatever it is, what is going on your playlist? And where did they come from? Just make some discoveries. Think about it for a little bit so that you can become aware of what's playing in your mind, and not only what's playing in your mind, but what's dictating your life. That's the real where the rubber meets the road, right? Because we're living it out, whether it's from the K-Li, K-L-I-E, or from the K-Hot playlist. We're living it one way or the other. So I just wanted to bring that awareness to you and share some of the examples from my own life so you could understand what I'm really talking about. Take a look, think about it, see what's going on your playlists. And that's it for today. Hopefully you're going to make some really important discoveries and become aware of something that maybe you hadn't thought about before. And then our next episode is, why is it so hard for us to stand up for ourselves when we're in this fawn pattern? So we'll delve into that a bit next time. Thanks again for joining me today. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day.